Ethan Cole knelt in a dim wooden room, his breath shallow and trembling. A single candle flickered before him, its flame stretching and curling like it feared the air itself. The walls seemed alive, their shadows shifting against the light. He whispered, "If anyone can hear me, show me the truth." The air grew thick with a metallic taste, heavy like iron. The floor trembled under his knees. Ethan raised his eyes as the candle burst into white fire, flooding the room with cold light. His pulse raced, his thoughts froze, and the silence became alive. From the light, a figure took shape, tall, shifting, neither solid nor air. Edges glimmered like molten silver. Ethan could not breathe. He tried to speak, but words fell dead in his throat. A voice spoke without sound, pressing deep inside his chest. It said, "You have been seen." His heart struck once, loud as thunder. The light burned through the darkness of his doubt, revealing something behind his fear. Ethan fell forward, trembling as the voice faded into silence, leaving the echo of divine eyes watching from beyond the veil. Morning light crept through the window as Ethan awoke on the cold floor. His hands were covered in ash from the burnt candle. The memory of the voice lingered like a wound. He whispered, "Was it real?" But his voice cracked. Outside, birds sang as if mocking his fear. He felt both lighter and hollow. The room smelled of smoke and salt. His reflection in the window looked like a stranger. Ethan said softly, "You have been seen," repeating the words until they lost meaning. His heart trembled with hope and terror. He pressed his palm to his chest, feeling the echo of that strange warmth. He thought of faith, of doubt, and how both felt the same in the dark. Ethan wandered outside into the quiet dawn. The world looked sharper, every leaf trembling in the breeze. He felt watched, but not by eyes of judgment. He stopped near an old fence where fog rolled low. "Who are you?" he whispered to the air. There was no answer, only the sound of his breath. A sense of peace mixed with fear stirred inside him. The sky turned from gray to gold, yet the world still felt unreal. He closed his eyes and saw again the silver light. "You have been seen," echoed softly in his memory. Ethan knew the dream was not finished. As Ethan walked along the dirt road, he saw Father Gabriel waiting near a chapel gate. The old man's eyes carried calmness, like someone who had seen miracles and doubted none. "You look troubled," Gabriel said. Ethan replied, "I saw something. A light. A voice." The priest nodded, unafraid. "Sometimes the soul cries loud enough that heaven listens." Ethan frowned. "Or maybe I'm losing my mind." Gabriel placed a hand on his shoulder. "Losing the world's mind may be the first step to finding God's truth." Ethan stared at him, unsure whether to believe or fear those words. That night, Ethan returned to his small room, restless and haunted. He placed a new candle before him, hesitating before lighting it. The silence pressed close, heavy with memory. "If you are real," he whispered, "come again." The flame flickered weakly. He waited. Nothing moved, yet inside his heart something stirred, a pulse like distant thunder. His fear mixed with longing, a fragile faith awakening from sleep. He bowed his head and whispered, "Show me who I am." Outside, wind brushed the walls, and the candle's flame bent toward him as though listening. The morning was cool and silent. As Ethan walked back to the chapel, his mind tangled between fear and faith. Father Gabriel waited inside, the candlelight glimmering across his kind yet weary face. Ethan said, "It spoke to me, Father." The light spoke. Gabriel studied him quietly before replying, "Not all who are spoken to are ready to hear." Ethan lowered his head. "What did it mean? You have been seen." The priest smiled faintly. "Perhaps it means heaven knows your name, Ethan. His words stirred something deep inside, a mix of comfort and dread. Ethan wanted to believe, yet every thought burned with doubt. Gabriel added softly, "Faith is not sight. It begins where reason ends," Ethan whispered. "Then maybe I'm not ready to believe." The priest stepped closer and said, "Belief does not need readiness, only surrender." Later that day, Rachel Miles entered the chapel, her expression sharp and skeptical. She saw Ethan sitting alone near the altar. "I heard you had a vision," she said with a hint of disbelief. Ethan nodded. "Something beyond this world." Rachel laughed softly. "Or maybe your mind played tricks. Darkness and solitude can do that." Ethan frowned. "I know what I felt." Rachel leaned forward. "Feelings don't make truth." Her voice echoed through the empty hall. Ethan looked down, unable to argue. "Then what does?" he asked. Rachel replied, "Proof." She crossed her arms, her confidence unshaken. Ethan whispered, "Maybe proof comes after faith." For the first time, Rachel's eyes softened, though she quickly looked away. Outside, clouds gathered as wind swept through the valley. Father Gabriel joined Ethan and Rachel beneath the old oak tree. "The storm speaks," Gabriel said, watching the sky. Rachel sighed. "You really believe nature talks?" Gabriel smiled. "God talks through everything." Ethan stared at the dark horizon. "Then what is it saying now?" Lightning flashed far away. Gabriel answered, "That storms cleanse before peace arrives." Rachel looked unconvinced but said nothing. Ethan whispered, "Then maybe this storm is inside me." The priest nodded. "Perhaps both." A soft rumble rolled across the hills, blending with the beating of Ethan's heart. Night fell. Ethan sat by his window, unable to sleep. Every sound made him flinch. Every flicker of light reminded him of the vision. He whispered, "Why me?" His reflection stared back, silent and hollow. Suddenly, the candle beside him flickered, though the air was still. The room grew colder. A faint voice echoed from nowhere, "Do not fear the eyes that see." Ethan froze. The candle flame bent toward the window. "Who's there?" he called out. The wind carried no answer, only the faint hum of unseen presence. He fell to his knees, trembling yet drawn toward that invisible call, whispering, "I'm listening." The next morning, Ethan met Gabriel again near the riverbank. The priest carried a small wooden cross in his hand. "You heard the voice again," Gabriel said calmly. Ethan nodded, eyes wide. "It said not to fear the eyes that see." The priest looked thoughtful. "Then perhaps it is not warning you, but guiding you." Rachel approached from behind, arms crossed. "Or leading him to madness." Gabriel smiled. "Madness and revelation often share a thin wall." Ethan stared at the moving water. "What if I cross it and never return?" Gabriel replied softly, "Then you will finally arrive." Days passed and Ethan's nights filled with restless dreams. Each dream began with the same silver light, but now he saw faint outlines of faces within it. One night he heard footsteps and turned to find a man he had never met before. "Who are you?" Ethan asked. The man replied, "Michael Reed." Ethan felt a strange pull toward him. "You were there," Ethan whispered. Michael looked down. "I once stood where you stand now." "Lost? Afraid guilty?" Ethan asked. "And what did you find?" Michael answered, "Mercy." The dream began to fade as Ethan reached for him. "Don't go," he shouted, but Michael's figure dissolved into the white glow, leaving Ethan alone once more. Ethan awoke, drenched in sweat, gasping for air. The name Michael echoed in his mind. He went to the chapel at dawn, calling for Gabriel. The priest opened the door, startled. "You look haunted," he said. Ethan replied, "I saw someone, a man named Michael." Gabriel's expression changed, touched by surprise. Michael Reed was once here. He sought redemption and vanished. Ethan's breath caught. So he was real. Gabriel nodded. "His spirit must have found you," Ethan whispered. "He said he found mercy." The priest placed his hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Then mercy seeks you too." Later that day, Rachel met Ethan outside the chapel. "You're chasing ghosts now?" she asked. Ethan looked at her with tired eyes. "Maybe they're chasing me." Rachel frowned. "You're scaring me, Ethan. You need rest, not visions," he replied softly. "I can't rest until I understand." Rachel stepped closer. "Understand what?" he said. "Why I was chosen." She paused, torn between worry and something she wouldn't admit. Curiosity. "If you're wrong," she asked. Ethan smiled faintly. "Then I'll still have believed in something that felt true." That night, Ethan dreamed again. This time, the silver light opened into a vast expanse of stars. A voice said, "You have sought mercy. Now seek truth." Seraphina appeared, glowing with quiet grace. Her eyes shimmered with calm light. "Ethan," she said, "the truth you fear is the same that will free you," he asked. "Why me?" she replied. "Because you looked where others turned away." The light around her pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. Ethan said, "Are you God?" Seraphina smiled gently. "No, I am his echo." The vision faded into calm darkness, leaving Ethan weeping with quiet awe. Ethan woke before dawn, eyes filled with tears. He stepped outside. The world bathed in blue light before sunrise. The wind whispered through the trees like a prayer. He whispered, "You have been seen." The words no longer frightened him. Rachel appeared behind him, quiet and thoughtful. "You look different," she said. Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe I finally see." She looked toward the sky. "And what do you see?" he answered. "Everything that was always here." The first light of morning broke through the clouds, washing their faces in gold as the day began anew. The chapel felt different that morning, filled with light that seemed alive. Ethan entered slowly, his footsteps echoing like whispers. He knelt before the altar, feeling peace and fear blend as one. "I saw her," he said when Father Gabriel appeared beside him. The priest nodded, understanding without surprise. "You saw Seraphina." Ethan's heart jumped. "You know her?" Gabriel smiled faintly. "She is the whisper between prayer and silence," Ethan said. "She told me the truth I fear will free me." Gabriel placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then face it, Ethan. Freedom always costs what fear protects." Ethan closed his eyes and breathed deeply, sensing the light around him shift like a living thing. That evening, Ethan sat by the river where mist hung low and the water whispered secrets. Rachel found him there, her steps cautious. "You've been quiet," she said. Ethan replied softly, "I think I met an angel." Rachel frowned. "You think or you know?" Ethan smiled sadly. "I know what I felt." Rachel crouched beside him. "Maybe the voice you hear is your own." He looked at the moving water. "Then maybe God hides inside our own voice." She said nothing, only watched the river shimmer beneath the fading sun. The silence between them felt holy, as if the world held its breath waiting for something unseen. Later that night, Ethan dreamed again. The world around him was endless light and shadow, flowing together like breath. Seraphina appeared before him, her eyes gentle but sorrowful. "Ethan," she said. "The truth is near," he asked. "Why do I feel like I'm breaking?" She replied, "Because what is broken must open to receive." He whispered, "What am I meant to do?" Seraphina extended her hand, light wrapping around her fingers like ribbons. Remember what you were before guilt. The light grew brighter, pulling him forward until his breath caught and his heart pounded with divine ache. Ethan awoke, gasping, tears running down his face. He stumbled outside into the cold night air. The moon shone pale over the valley. He whispered, "Remember what I was." His memories came rushing. Choices, pain, people he hurt. He fell to his knees, clutching his chest. Father Gabriel found him there, wordless, only kneeling beside him. "Let it break," the priest said quietly. Ethan wept, his body shaking. Ethan wept, his body shaking. "I can't." Gabriel looked up at the stars. "Then let him do it for you." A soft wind brushed through the trees, and for a moment, Ethan felt something lift from him like smoke leaving fire. By dawn, Ethan stood before the chapel door, exhausted but lighter. He entered to find the candle on the altar already burning. Seraphina's voice whispered softly in his mind, "The door is open." Ethan closed his eyes, letting peace spread through him like warm light. Father Gabriel entered behind him and said, "Every awakening begins in surrender." Ethan turned, his face calm. "I think I finally understand." Gabriel smiled. "Then the dream has begun to live." The candle flame flickered, casting light that reached every corner of the chapel, and Ethan felt no fear, only stillness and grace. Days later, the peace faded as new unrest took its place. Ethan began hearing whispers not of light but of shadow. The candle in his room dimmed each night. One evening, a cold presence filled the air. A low voice said, "You are not chosen. You are cursed." Ethan froze, fear crawling down his spine. "Who are you?" he demanded. The voice laughed, sharp and cruel. "I am what you fear you are." Darkness spread like smoke across the walls. Ethan clutched his chest, whispering, "No, I've been seen by light." The shadow hissed, "And yet it watches you fall." Ethan ran to the chapel seeking Gabriel. The priest met him with calm eyes. "It's begun," Gabriel said. "The darkness always returns before dawn." Ethan panted. "It spoke to me. It said I was cursed." Gabriel replied, "It lies." "Darkness always lies." Ethan collapsed onto a bench. "How do I silence it?" The priest held up the cross. "You don't. You outshine it." Ethan looked at the flame still burning on the altar. He whispered, "Then let me burn brighter." Gabriel nodded, his eyes glimmering with faith. That night, the darkness returned stronger. Ethan dreamed of the silver light turning black. Lucen appeared, eyes like coals. "You're mine," he growled. Ethan stood firm. "You're only fear." Lucen laughed. "Fear made you pray." The air cracked with thunder. Ethan shouted, "Then let faith answer." Light burst from his hands, flooding the void. Lucen recoiled, screaming as the brightness grew. Ethan's heart pounded until the vision shattered like glass. He awoke with a cry, the candle beside him blazing higher than before. Ethan ran outside, the night sky alive with wind and sound. Rachel found him standing barefoot in the grass. "Ethan," she shouted. He turned to her, eyes full of strange calm. "It's over," he said. She shook her head. "You're scaring me again," he smiled softly. "No, Rachel. For the first time, I'm free." She stepped closer, seeing the light behind his eyes. "What happened?" he answered. "I faced the dark and found God waiting inside it." Tears filled her eyes as the wind carried the scent of rain. Next morning, sunlight poured through the chapel windows brighter than ever. Ethan stood before the altar, silent and serene. Father Gabriel watched him with quiet pride. "You've found peace," he said. Ethan nodded. "Not found, remembered." Rachel entered, standing in awe of the calm filling the room. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ethan smiled. "It always was." The three stood in stillness as the candle flame rose high, its light forming a faint silver outline in the air, the trace of Seraphina's presence. Her voice echoed softly. "You have been seen." The night wind swept through the chapel, rattling the windows like whispers of spirits. Ethan stood before the altar, his heart steady yet expectant. He sensed a stirring inside the walls, the same hum that filled the air when the light first spoke. "Show me," he said quietly. The floor trembled. Shadows thickened at the corners as Lucian's presence bled through the dark. "So, you believe the light forgave you?" the voice hissed. Ethan replied, "It did." Lucian laughed, low and cruel. "Then prove it." The candles flickered out. Only the silver glint of moonlight cut through the dark. Ethan whispered, "Faith does not prove. It lives." Lucian's form emerged from the shadows, his eyes glowing with cold fire. "You think light can love you," he said. Ethan's breath trembled, but he did not look away. "Love isn't earned. It's given." The air tightened, heavy as stone. Lucian stepped closer, the scent of smoke rising with him. "You're still broken." Ethan raised his head. "Maybe broken things shine best." Lucian sneered. "Then burn." A surge of darkness swept across the floor. Ethan spread his hands toward the altar and shouted, "Then let me burn with truth." Light burst forth, pushing the dark back with blinding force. When the light faded, Ethan knelt gasping on the floor. Lucian staggered, his form flickering like dying flame. "You cannot escape me," Lucian whispered. Ethan looked up, voice trembling but sure. "You are only what I used to believe." Lucian reached out, his hand dissolving into ash. "Then who will you be without me?" Ethan said, "Free." The last shadow broke apart into smoke, vanishing in the air. The candle reignited on its own, flame steady and pure. Ethan whispered, "It is finished." The chapel felt alive again, breathing softly through the silence. Outside, dawn broke slow and soft. Ethan stepped into the light, his hands trembling from release. Father Gabriel stood nearby, watching. "It's done," Ethan said. Gabriel smiled gently. "Then you've walked through shadow and found grace." Ethan nodded. "It wasn't the light that scared me. It was what it showed." Gabriel replied, "Truth always shows the wound before it heals it." Ethan looked at the sunrise spilling over the valley. "Then I am finally healed." The priest's eyes glistened as bells from the chapel began to ring faintly in the wind. Later that morning, Ethan returned to the river. The water moved quietly, reflecting the sky's gold and blue. Rachel approached, carrying calm on her face. "You look at peace," she said. Ethan smiled. "For the first time, the silence doesn't scare me." Rachel looked at him gently. "And the voice?" He shook his head. "It's still there, only softer." She nodded. "Maybe that's what faith sounds like." Ethan knelt and touched the water. The reflection of his face rippled, yet his eyes no longer looked lost. That evening, Ethan sat alone in the chapel once more. The light outside turned crimson as the sun sank behind the hills. He whispered, "You have been seen." Not as a plea, but as a promise. The words felt whole, steady. Suddenly, the air shifted. Seraphina appeared in soft radiance. "You have walked the circle," she said. Ethan bowed his head. "Then this is the end," she smiled. "The end of blindness, not of journey." He felt warmth rise in his chest, like a heartbeat shared with something eternal. Seraphina stepped closer, her voice a melody woven with stillness. "Ethan, the secret God was never hidden from you. He lived within every doubt you feared, Ethan's eyes filled with tears. Then all this time I was searching for myself. She nodded. You were searching for the divine within you. The light enveloped them both. Ethan whispered, Then let me never forget. Seraphina replied, Remember, and you will never lose the light again. The vision faded, leaving Ethan alone in the quiet glow of candles. Rachel entered, cautious but hopeful. Was it her again? She asked. Ethan nodded. Yes, but not as before. She didn't come to show me anything, only to remind me. Rachel smiled faintly. Of what? Ethan looked upward. That God hides in broken hearts, not behind stars. She stepped closer, taking his hand in silence. The candle flame flickered between them, steady, gentle, alive. Outside, the night sky spread wide and endless. Father Gabriel stood beside Ethan as they looked up. Do you see it now? Gabriel asked. Ethan smiled. Yes. The darkness isn't empty. It's full of light waiting to be known. The priest chuckled softly. Then you found what most spend a lifetime missing. Ethan turned toward the chapel, whispering. The dream was never about seeing God. It was about becoming the one who can. Dawn returned, washing the valley with light. Ethan walked alone toward the river, every step calm and sure. He paused at the water's edge and smiled at his reflection. You have been seen, he whispered again, not to the heavens, but to himself. The sunlight touched his face, golden and alive. In that still moment, heaven and earth felt the same. A single bird rose into the brightening sky, and the sound of wings became the closing hymn of his journey.